People in New Jersey are concerned and demanding information after a wave of mysterious drone sightings.
This is over my house right now. What is that?
The FAA has now ordered 2 temporary flight restrictions prohibiting drones over this military base and Trump National Golf Club after receiving reports of unexplained activity.
Well, an urgent warning from the FBI and state police about all those drones spotted in New Jersey.
You know, there's a saying that we had after 9/11, if you see something, say something. I think that's become, if you see something, don't worry about it, because we saw it too.
So we've heard from the FBI, and the FBI says there's no reason to believe that these recent possible drone sightings pose a national security threat. National security threat.
Tonight, the investigation into reports of small car-sized drones hovering over New York and New Jersey is deepening.
Oh, it's slowing down.
Nothing nefarious, apparently, but they're checking it all out. I think it's just one. There's a lot of drones authorized up there. We're following them closely. So far, no sense of danger.
You know, there's a lot of rumor out there that this is radiation sniffing or chemical sniffing. This is not a federal government operation. We're very, very confident of that.
There's no imminent threat to public safety.
They haven't found anything that would indicate that there's foreign influence, foreign actors, or even little green men. Little green men. Little green men.
So what'd you see?
I really don't know what it was. I mean, could have been a drone. That's what everybody says on the news. I was actually asleep. Well, getting ready to go to sleep. My girlfriend was out in the backyard letting out my dog. She also talks to her family because she's from Brazil late at night, and she's always taking pictures of the sky, looking at the moon. And she ran in the house, got me, told me to grab my phone. I ran out there. I looked up, there it was. But what I seen was just maybe 4 red orbs together, creating one object.
Hello and welcome to a breaking news special edition of the Deceptive Reality Podcast. My name is Nick.
And I am Bert, and we are coming to you live with something that is captivating the worlds and the minds of many people out there, but you just don't find a lot of information on it. And what that is, as you saw in the introduction, these doggone drones. And we're trying to get to the bottom of it. We're trying to figure out exactly what's going on. So Nick and I are going to be having a conversation today to kind of get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, we want to know what's going on and we want to get your input. And we've got some input from people already. It's breaking news this time.
It's pretty exciting. So I have an interview, and you saw part of it in the very beginning of the reels where it kind of breaks down all these news. And obviously, as most of you know, or some of you are brand new, welcome to the podcast. It's going to be a situation where we kind of have something different than what most that would even cover this has. And what that is I'm here in the States and Nick is in Canada, and we have 2 very different looks at what these drones are.
I never thought when I was seeing all the broadcast of what you guys were experiencing down in the South there, that it would ever affect us in Canada. But I guess we're real true neighbors and we share alike when it comes to the mysterious.
It's like a virus, Nick.
It is like a virus. Once you've heard about it, you've got 7 days. Actually, it's very close to actually not much longer than that, really.
Exactly. It was pretty close. When you look at all of these events, and like most of you saw from our news coverage here in the States, it really kind of captivated us exactly with everything from processing and trying to understand what it is. And we still don't know what it is. I mean, we're talking about something that's been out since mid-November. It's when this is coming out, it's going to be January. Goodness, when's this episode coming out, Nick? January 3rd.
Oh, yeah. Very early January in the new year.
Yeah. So we're talking is a month and a half, and we still have, honestly, I don't think we have any more indicators of what this is.
No, I find it troubling, though, that, well, 2 things I find troubling. It's being really widely covered in the U.S. They don't know what it is or claim not to know what it is, but they're not doing anything about it. And they're making a blanket statement that this is no threat whatsoever. What do you think about that?
Here's the thing. what I find interesting is you say it's not a threat at all.
Right. Well, that's not my words. That's the government's words. Yeah.
What I mean is they say it's not a threat at all.
Right.
But yet they say we don't know what it is. It's not us. Right. It's not us, people.
Yeah. Well, they also say it's not another country. So what is it?
Correct. So here's the thing. If it's not us, it's not another country. You don't know what it is. How can you say it's not a viable threat?
Right. Exactly.
That doesn't make any sense. That's an oxymoron.
Yeah. Right. It kind of reminds me, there was this news statement that came out here where someone had been shot on a certain street not far from where I work. And they said, we've not apprehended the suspect, but he poses no threat to the general public. And I was kind of like, how do you know that? He just shot a guy.
Yeah.
Do you know he only had one bullet?
Exactly.
What's the situation here?
I bet the first guy didn't think he was a threat either until he was dead.
Yeah, surprise, right?
Jeezy Pete's. You know, what I find captivating about this story, and those of you that's watching this broadcast now, you can't really find people that's really covering this story, and why that is, I don't know. We have had some people come to us and tell us, I wouldn't do this episode if I'm you guys. I mean, you know, this could potentially be a situation where you're putting yourself in harm's way. And I'm just going to say it here today. Obviously, we have concerns, but with that being said, we're not going to cave into that. But I think it's only fair to say, and not to be the Debbie Downer, if something was to happen to myself, and I'm sure Nick will say much the same thing.
Oh yeah.
We have nothing of interest of harming ourselves.
That's right. Exactly.
So, yeah, just take that with a grain of salt. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, you know?
Right. And if the channel disappears, we did not delete it.
Correct.
We've had a lot of instances where almost 50% of what I was researching that I had saved on the day or the day after has since been account deleted, or the post has been deleted. And one of the people I talked to is super convinced that there's threats going around, or that people are being disappeared. Now, we talked about this. We don't necessarily believe that, but just in the off chance, we are not deleting any content, and we're not deleting our channel.
Correct. Yeah, that's going to be something that would never cross our minds. We want to do a little bit more of this in 2025. What we're looking to do is bring you more of a different type of expectation going forward, and some of that is covering things such as like this drones. We really want to get to some of these new age mysteries. That doesn't mean that we're going to step away from what we've done before in the past, but we definitely want to sprinkle some of these in, as well as obviously going on location or talking about things locally to us. And with this podcast, what we're going to do is we're going to split this into two sections. Today, what you're going to be watching is the US coverage of this drones that's happening here in the US. But much like what Nick was saying, you know, it's not like our Canadian friends up north are not experiencing it also. So that will be covered next week. So this is kind of the entry level of, hey, here's what's going on. This is what the US is seeing. Next week is going to be the much quieter Canadian version. Now, the cool thing is, Deceptive Reality, though Nick is in Canada, everything's ran off of the US for our website, or for our podcasts. So
well, the website too is in the US.
Yes,
hosted in the US.
So the good thing is, for everyone here, it's less likely that this will be taken down, but anything is possible. We've learned that time and time again whenever there's something of this type of substance.
Yeah. So if you like this episode, definitely tune in the following week for the Canadian version, because I actually was witness to the beginning of it and a lot of the stuff that went on. And it's not getting coverage here. So we're having the same experience, but two different situations in each of our countries. And maybe that says a lot about how we handle things.
Well, yeah. I mean, we all know the US has been known to take things down that they're not necessarily big fans of. I just think that there's so much information on this, and we're going to be covering some videos today. Nick has some amazing video creation that he has done for next week. I've already been able to watch it. and consume it for its value. So pretty exciting stuff next week. So definitely, like you said, tune into next week. But let's talk about what's happening so far, or should I say what's happened so far, Nick. I've got a little bit of timeline of events of things that happen. I'm going to get your take on some of this and kind of see how you feel about this. So obviously mid-November in 2024, and we're going to talk about some things in the past also. That was the initial reports of large unidentified drones that was appearing at the night, or should I say at nighttime, across several New Jersey counties. Now, when did you first start hearing about these in Canada, Nick?
Pretty close to when it was happening, like, because we get a lot of your news.
Yeah.
In fact, we probably get a lot more of your news than we get of our own news. So we started hearing about this right away, but it wasn't a big deal at first, it seemed like.
Well, it was definitely a big deal to us. And the interesting thing is, when I probably started hearing about this at the end of November, I can tell you it was after Thanksgiving.
Right.
So with it after Thanksgiving, it kind of caught me off guard because I'm like, this is just people outside with drones. It's not a big deal. And I don't think a lot of people really gave an indication that it was a huge deal at first. It was kind of like, why are all these large drones in the air? And they're saying large drones. This is this, you know, it wasn't hobbyist drones. They did not believe. But did you know that then when we look at November of 2024, at the middle part, late 2024, the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, issued temporary flight restrictions over areas including, what's that word, Nick? Picatinny? Someone's screaming at me in New Jersey right now. Arsenal. Picatinny? Pikachu.
Oh, where?
Picatinny. Late November 2024 on the timeline of events.
Late November. Oh, okay. Sorry. I was the Picatinny. Arsenal?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's what I would say. This is your place. I don't know.
Yeah, New Jersey. Someone in New Jersey screamed at me right now. Dude, get your facts straight.
Yeah, I love New Jersey. It's like one of the few places I visited in the U.S., by the way. Go New Jersey.
Never been to Jersey.
I liked it. Oh, the people reminded me a lot like where I'm from. Oh, they just tell it to you right straight up.
They make sure you know.
It was just like going home in your other country.
Boy. Well, they shut down. They restricted the areas over that and President-elect Trump's golf club. So where he's doing some of that golfing at the Bedminster. Now, what's surprising to me is to restrict airspace like that. Now, remember, they said this is not a viable threat.
Right. But that rarely happens.
Yeah. But you're restricting areas? That makes no sense. Why would that be?
Right. If it's got to be a threat of some kind.
I mean, why else would you restrict? Now, Nick and I, we're going to be watching some videos. You guys are going to see what we're talking about also. Nick, I want to take your attention to that folder that I sent you.
Right.
And we're going to show you folks at home. There's the one with the airplane and the drones outside of it.
Yep.
That was like 2 minutes and 8 seconds long. It's kind of loud because you're actually hearing the airplane. I'm going to make that a lot quieter for the folks at home. But I kind of want you to take a glance at this video and I want to get your impression of this. Now, this is someone that's inside of the plane. And what I find interesting about this is as they're looking at the drones on the outside of that aircraft, it almost looks like some are extremely close.
I was just thinking that.
Some are a good deal further. But what's interesting is they're all at different altitudes, or at least that's the way it appears.
Right. There still does appear to be some kind of formation to them. Still. But like some are incredibly close by the looks of it.
And if you're in an airplane, like that's the worst possible thing you can have happen.
Right. Well, I've seen some videos where they sent drones up, and anytime they approached them, they powered down, and that's what I'd be concerned about.
Oh, you best believe. Now, the second video that we have, I don't know what it is. It's obviously significantly higher in the sky, and they kind of zoomed in on it.
Yeah, I see that.
Now, what I can't figure out, I don't know what kind of aircraft that is, but... And then the third one is kind of similar to the first one we watched. It's obviously significantly darker. Now, up at the very top of that video, you're going to see a blinking light. That is what an aircraft is typically like. When I think aircraft, I think the blinking lights.
Right,
but
exactly.
If you look at those drones, those aren't blinking in this video.
No, but they are like almost rotating or pulsing a little bit, not blinking, but
yes.
Oh yeah.
Like I look at these and I think to myself, now that one that they just zoomed in on, that one has a blinking light. It looks like it's a green blinking light on top of it.
Right. They're zooming in what I would consider really close on these, but even on an iPhone, the definition should be good enough. Like sometimes it's hard to tell that they're drones at all, really.
Right. Well, and you know, we're talking about drones as in almost like it's a conventional commercial grade drone,
right.
But you know, it's not. I don't necessarily know that that is quite the case. In fact, for those of you listening at home, Nick and I, we was looking at this. There's also imagery that I found. It talks about there's a fixed wing UAV,
right?
And they have different models. And some of the things that I've seen gives me more of an impression that that is what it is versus the rotary wing UAVs.
Right.
And if you look at the one, like the one is clearly just a helicopter. What we're watching is not a helicopter. That's not.
Yeah, it's definitely not that.
No.
I did notice something about these drones is like none of the ones on the image seem to be fixed with the same quantity and power of lights that we're seeing in these.
Right.
Like maybe that's an add-on that you get afterwards. But typically, well, I know the consumer ones really don't have much lights on them at all.
Right.
Purposely probably for this, and they're not going typically into airspace.
Right.
Usually. A lot of the ones that you can buy yourself, they're programmed not to fly in the areas that these are flying.
Yeah. Correct. You know, something I found interesting, we did a podcast a while ago where we talked about, I can't remember what episode it was, but we were talking about, we didn't think it went on radar until it hit, I think it's 400 foot, and then it shows up on radar. Someone corrected us in the comments of that video.
Oh, okay.
And they had video footage showing radar signals that shows once it's, I think it's 100 feet off the ground.
Oh, that's not much at all then.
No, their systems can pick that up.
Yeah. You know, that does make a lot of sense now that we're talking about that, because why wouldn't everything dangerous just fly below that?
Yeah.
Many things are capable of doing that.
Correct.
But under 100 is a little more dangerous.
Yeah, but not only that, but think about it. I mean, these aircrafts that we're watching is, I mean, how high do you assume those probably are? 10,000 feet, 15? Like they're not 40,000 feet. They're below the clouds.
They're at a plane flight level though.
Yeah, but I'm thinking like they're lower city, almost like they're at the departure, or they're like incoming into a city. That's the vibe I get anyway.
Yeah.
And some of these drones are, it looks like they're at the same level, and that's probably 8,000 to 10,000 feet would be my guess.
Yeah. Which is high above the consumer ones.
Oh, for sure. Not only that, but think about it. And you know, it's funny because I have a drone that I'm probably going to be purchasing, especially for our trip that we've got coming up.
Okay.
But I want to pick up one of those DJI Neos. I don't know if you've seen those.
I've not seen the Neo, but the DJI line is really good. That's what my brother's got.
Yes, that's what I have too. So now I've got the DJI Mini.
Okay. That comes in a Mini 2 as well, doesn't it?
I think it goes all the way to Mini 3 now, I believe.
Yeah, I think my brother had the Mini 2 and it was just amazing.
Oh, yeah. That's the way. Mine was the first prototype that came out. I bought it when it first was available for commercial purchase.
Okay.
And it still does great. Records in 1080, I think up to 60 frames per second. Great little drone.
Yeah. But if you were in a plane, you're not even going to see these.
No. But with the Nano or the Neo, I'm sorry, it's one that fits in your palm of your hand. You press a button, it goes up, and then it'll follow you, which is why I want it.
Oh yeah, that's important.
Yeah,
not many have that.
No, and it doesn't have great accident avoidance, but it has pretty good.
Right.
But what I want to do is for this coming year with some of the documentaries that we're documentary style podcasts we're going to be doing. Right. I want to have it, and they make a mic. Get this. They make a mic. It's a lapel mic that you put on.
Okay.
And it takes the noise from the drone out. So you can walk.
That's handy.
You can walk and have a conversation, and there's no audio noise from that. So I'm like, that would be cool, especially like for the houses we're going to go to, because it'll follow right behind us in the house.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Because it would suck if we did all that footage and then we had to do like ADR for everything afterwards.
Exactly.
You see a lot of shows do that. So
correct. So, but it has a wind tolerance of 4, which means any kind of wind is going to suck. Now,
right.
My Mavic Mini, I think it's also a 3 or a 4. And here's the thing. I've gotten it up in the air, 200, 300 feet. And as you know, wind changes drastically the higher you get up.
Right. Yeah.
And I'll get so far up and it's like, whoa, wait a second. You got some drift action. And for the werewolf episode that we did, I got it up kind of high and there was a wind advisory and I'm like, it'll be fine. Like not a huge deal. And out of nowhere, this wind gust took it. Like it took it. And I freaked out a little bit because there was trees on both sides and it pushed it right over the trees. So I wanted to get it below where that wind was pushing it, but I couldn't because there was trees. So I was fighting this wind while running down these railroad tracks to keep my signal in line. But it makes me think, okay, so you go commercial, right? So you upgrade your, let's say a cinematography drone.
Right.
That's going to be wind 1, maybe wind 2 on the top end. But we're still talking about wind speeds.
Right.
That's going to be nothing like if you're up, let's say 10,000 feet, right?
Right.
That's a significantly different type of wind speed. I don't think the average person could purchase a drone.
Right.
Not only that, but think about the signal range.
Think about battery capacity.
Correct.
I know those drones cannot go up for very long at all. In fact, the little one that my brother's got, I think he's got like 15 minutes flight time on a full charge or something like that.
So mine will do 30 minutes.
Oh, okay.
I have 3 batteries. So, obviously you want to get it back well within 30 minutes in the events that you run into an issue or something.
Right.
But the Nano that I'm looking at, its flight time is 18 minutes max.
Right. So we're not talking about all night long, all over New Jersey.
Correct.
Like I looked into some of the battery times, and so there's like crop dusting drones as well. They have pretty good battery life, but I don't think it's like more than an hour or so.
Right.
Something like that. The military ones are like 8 hours, which is still not matching up with how long they stayed here. And I think where you are.
Right.
But there's newer versions that can go almost a day, I think, or maybe even longer.
Yeah.
But that rules out anything below military.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
Right.
But think about it. That's what the military tells us.
Right. Right.
And, not saying the military doesn't necessarily tell us all the ins and outs of life, but I find it odd Now, the next thing that it talks about is early December of 2024. That was the absolute peak of drone sightings.
Right.
With the reports of drones flying over in deliberate formations over the Atlantic Ocean off of the New Jersey coast.
Right.
So this thing escalated from mid-November. People started identifying it. Late November, they start shutting everything down within these two spots. Early December, now everyone's looking for these drones. There's enough news coverage where people's like, well, let me just go outside and see what I can see.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Now, I don't think it, like, I'm going to repeat this, that you just said it here, but that's half a month.
Yeah.
That this went on with no action from anyone.
Yes.
Think about that.
I mean, it's crazy to think about, period, because, and, you know, I think this is where probably some of this information's disappearing.
Right.
Because maybe they don't want our attention on these things. But, you know, somebody said something, and I can't remember where I heard it. If they didn't want us to know they're there, they would not have lights.
Right. So they want to make a scene.
Yeah.
But, you know, let's talk about a similar incident for a moment. Do you remember when the Chinese spy balloon that we didn't know what it was?
Yes.
Was in Canada and the US? Immediate response. They chased it down, shot it down, and we're looking at the pieces immediately.
Right.
Not a half month later. We're talking hours later.
For you guys, when you guys caught a hold of it, we actually knew about it for a while, and we let it roll.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I guess we were the ones that are aggressive that time.
Yeah. Unfortunately, our administration kind of let that happen, because what they said was they was scared they would shoot it down, and they thought it was the size of a bus.
Right.
And that it would take something out. But apparently it had already been over multiple military zones. And they had been tracking it.
I don't know if we're handling these things properly. I don't think we should allow it to
absolutely
happen like that, right? You know?
Let me ask you a question. You put a security system in your house.
Yes.
And then you've got all this high dollar, high value stuff in your house. Do you let the criminal come in and say, hey, take a glance at this, but hey, don't you do nothing nefarious. I got a security system.
As long as you don't touch it, you can wander all through my house.
Don't touch it.
No.
That's crazy.
They'd be down faster than a spy balloon.
You best believe.
I promise you that.
Best believe.
It's funny. I can't leave. Like I used to go away for a few days, and it always bothered me, like what's going on in my house. So I actually did have a security system put in.
Oh yeah.
And I gotta like at night watch it a little bit, like a dragon guarding its hoard, just to make sure everything's cool.
Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just called being smart about things, Nick.
That's right. I got our deceptive reality gear in here I gotta protect. So
that's kind of funny. Now, there was information, and I'm looking for it now. There's information that I received, and I cannot say exactly where I got this information from.
Okay.
There is some things that I am going to leave a little vague, mostly because it's one of three things. Either people did not want me to divulge information, or it's a case where people got a little bit nervous.
Yeah.
But there was some information that came out. Now, this is coming from apparently people within New Jersey. It was the New Jersey police that was talking about some of this stuff. And obviously, if you're watching this, I'm going to guess we're going to have more people in New Jersey probably watching this than anywhere else in the States, but who knows? But the information that was provided was that on average, people could see these things fly between 6 and 7 hours nonstop. There's no known drones commercial that can do that.
Right. Nothing short of military, I think. And that's even the upper end on a lot of those.
Correct. They have lights on them. Now, these could easily be disabled. which means, and this goes back to what we were talking about before, whoever's operating these things want us to know that they're in our airspace and that we cannot do anything about it.
Right. Just to riff off that, when they arrived off our coast, it was broad daylight and they took up position. We could clearly see them coming in, lining up. There was 17 to 20 of them, and they just stayed there. And I would say they stayed there till the next evening almost.
That's crazy.
So there was no hiding it.
It's kind of like, remember in the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind?
Yep.
Where things like do 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 do, and then they do. Yeah. They don't care. They're there. Listen, you're gonna deal or you're not gonna deal. Not saying it's a UFO, just saying kind of the same philosophy.
Yeah. I mean, there's a statement in the next episode, and I'm gonna sort of echo it here. I hope they're UFOs for a certain reason that I'll cover later.
You guys are gonna have to come back for episode 2 for that.
Yeah, we're doing a little bit of hinting at that kind of thing. But they wanted to be seen.
For sure.
There's this movie, it's Julia Roberts is in it. It's kind of a new one, and it's sort of like an apocalypse movie. Is it Leave the World Behind or something like that?
Don't know that I've ever seen it.
Okay, well, it's about an attack on North America, and some of the tactics that they use, because they use all these different tactics at once. And one of the tactics is that they just show certain shows of aggression and don't really follow it up, just so people know that they could have done something. And then people wonder, if they're that brazen about it, what more could they do?
Oh, for
and
sure.
It almost felt like that tactic. It was like they were lining up all along the coast just to say, this, we can do this, and there's nothing you can do about this.
Exactly the vibe I get. Yeah.
Right.
It comes across to me, and maybe it's just me, almost threatening to a degree.
Right. It's a vulgar display of power, like they say.
Correct.
You know, you're two of the biggest nations. Like you're America's definitely the biggest nation with the largest power on the globe, and we're your friendly neighborhood, but we're pretty vicious in war as well when we get in there. And they're like, there's nothing that either of you can do about this.
Right.
And maybe it's even a message to other countries as well. Look, if these guys can't do anything,
what can you do?
What can you do?
Now, something that I did find interesting. Now, you've worked with your brother's drone, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
You get it out of the sky, you get it down, you're doing whatever. It's a little hot.
Right.
A little warm.
Yeah.
It's got a little heat to it.
Yep.
The UAV, or I'm going to say UAVs, these drones is how we're calling it.
Right.
No heat signature.
Oh, that's interesting. I never even considered that.
Yeah. Absolutely no heat signature. None.
Right.
Zero. There is no known drone that is the copter style.
Right.
That doesn't have a heat signature. It's impossible.
Oh, it would be impossible, because like all of those motors, they generate heat. The expenditure of energy generates heat.
Correct.
That's all there is to it.
Correct.
As far to the technology we know about.
Correct. Now, the winged version of these drones, the fixed wing, I believe is what they're calling them.
Right.
They may employ a technology capable of masking the heat.
Interesting. I wonder why they'd bother if they're going to show up and blind us with lights and stuff like that, though. What would be the purpose?
Well, think about it. When we get close to them, what do? They turn their lights out and they go completely invisible.
Right.
You don't even know they're there. So I don't think that they're trying to do it. I think that's just how they're made. They're made to go completely invisible if they need to. So I found that extremely interesting. Which that's actually the next thing. Disappear when approached, seemingly in thin air, which is very odd.
Right.
We get a drone.
Lot of good reasons for that.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. The lights always go out and then it's gone. Disappear.
Now, there was another story that was going on through out in New Jersey and stuff, and there was a transport of radioactive material that went missing. Do you think that's related to this?
No.
Okay, just a coincidence on that part.
I believe, I saw an expert talk about this, and they said, first off, if you're going to try to find some type of a radiation, you're going to have to be high up, like what these drones are.
Right.
But he said with the current technology we have, there'd be no way for us to spot and or quote unquote sniff out radiation from that height.
Yeah.
So what's the point of all these drones being that high?
Right.
If you never can get to it. Now we have a video, Nick. There was one drone that was extremely close in a video.
Right.
If you look on the files, it's called
Close.
Close, I think is what I call it.
Yeah.
But if you click on that and you watch it, I mean, this guy, it's right over his house. That, I would say, is the level of probably what my commercial drone is.
Right.
That's probably only a couple of feet, 100 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at it, though, there is a blinking light underneath it, which appears to be red.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. If you look, even though it's got that blinking light, that looks like a fixed winged.
It absolutely has to be.
Yeah. But here's the thing. Could it be a plane? Possibly. But it's got the blinker light right in the middle of it.
Right. It looked like it was on the rear as well, or maybe it's just completely on the bottom of it.
And here's the thing. That looked like that was low.
Right.
Now, maybe it's an airplane that's super high up.
I don't think so.
But here's the thing. If it's super high up, you know how slow it goes across the sky. Like, it's not coming that fast, and that's not a sped up video.
Yeah.
There's no way.
No, that looks perfectly natural. And it's definitely moving in a way that you could tell from the ground.
Right.
So I don't think it's fooling our eyes or anything. I think it is that low.
Right. But you know what that looked like to me? When I get my drone up to probably 200 feet and it's going about 35 miles an hour.
Right.
I would say probably that's about the speed that it would go at 200 feet up. That's about how fast it would look like it was going.
Yeah. And I think if I think back to my brothers when we were looking at the forest fire area, that's about the speed it looks like it was going. Now, mind you, if you were close up to it, those things can lift. Like they're
fast
moving. But yeah, the higher up you go, the slower it looks. I think that's basic human knowledge.
Correct. But think about it. The drones that we have, very light, very small.
Yeah.
That drone, if it's 200 feet up, that's got to be at least 4 foot, 5 foot. Maybe
I
more.
estimated it's massive. If it's as high as we're estimating,
200 feet, yeah,
then I think it's massive, because when I watch that, it looks like it's really low to me.
Yeah.
And if it's not really low and it's higher up, then that thing is huge.
Oh yeah, if it's way up there, it's got to be huge.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like, I almost want to watch it again here, because I let me see if he's. Yeah, so he zooms in 2 times.
Yeah.
Like it's 2 magnification levels there. It's coming over. I don't think it's too high above the lines and stuff, because the amount of time it takes him to go directly over his head and him turning around. I think the most telling part is when he turns around when it goes over his head.
Yeah.
that I think you can get some idea of the distance it is away. So that looks like it's really low.
To me, it
I
does.
wish we had sound on this one.
I know.
Because that would give a lot away. Now, let's talk about that for a second. Mm-hmm. Have you ever been at home and the power goes out?
Oh, yeah.
And the silence is deafening because we get so used to that buzz of electricity in the walls and hums of different stuff like that. When they arrived here the whole night and the whole day, you felt like something was wrong with you because it was just absolute silence. There wasn't any planes going over or anything like that. Your friend who saw it, did he hear any other sounds at the time? Did he hear any sounds from it?
Well, if you look at that video, that was the only thing that was in the sky.
Right.
Now, typically, she will go outside. Her family lives in Brazil. She's technically in Brazil now.
Right.
Because she went on vacation or like a holiday to Brazil. And as you know, there's a significant time difference.
Right.
So she would stay up till, when this thing started happening at nighttime to talk to her family. And a lot of times what she does is she'll put her phone up in the sky and take pictures of different stars.
Right.
Like religious reference stars and stuff like that. That's just her thing. That's what she enjoys to do. It's kind of funny because we was talking today and I showed the gentleman that did the interview. And it's like, hey, here's the intro to this podcast coming out this Friday. You're a star. Right. You made it to the intro. And he sent it to her. And she responded back. She goes, make sure to tell him it's a demon. She's convinced it's a demon.
Years and years and years ago when I was quite young, eons ago, one might say, I went to a church function where an evangelical guy, or evangelical scientist is what he called himself, was saying that UFOs are the devil.
Oh, yeah.
And they're all done with superheated metals and all this kind of stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
So there are a lot of people who believe that. I am not in that camp.
No, I'm afraid this one's not a demon for me. But
right. We love to talk about them.
We love is listen. They're one of our favorite topics.
Yeah. You gotta just watch the last episode before this,
correct.
I think.
Yeah, it will be.
Yeah.
Correct. But when you look at it, there's something to the technology that this is. There has to be.
You know what? And I know it's not this, and I'm not claiming this in case everyone's taking everything literally. To me, it looked just like the hunter killers from Terminator 2.
Oh, yeah.
That you see in the future. Looked exactly like it.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that till you just said that.
Yeah,
that's true.
It's surely not, and I'm not claiming that in any way, shape, or form.
Or are we?
What if this is AI taking over?
I mean,
no one's talked about that.
No one has talked about that. I didn't even think of that until you just said it.
Some factories are almost completely automated and they're connected to the internet. You know what? Maybe this is an avenue that I shouldn't go down, but that's a theory.
If it wasn't before, it is now.
It is now.
Another thing that this talks about is, and we kind of touched on this a little bit, it's coming off the ocean.
Right.
It happened for you off the ocean. It happened for us off of the ocean.
Yeah. Now you got a preview of the video that I put together that actually shows on the map where all these were happening.
Yes.
And these are coming out of the Atlantic Ocean from the sea to the shore.
Right.
So they're not coming from land to land. They've made a trip.
Correct.
And the same in New Jersey, I believe.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes you think, if it's coming from the ocean, there has to be a methodology of how they got there.
Right. Because as far as we know, there's not drone technology to traverse the entire ocean.
No.
That we know about. Canada, one thing, like, we don't have nearly the funding you guys do, but we have massive amounts of radar.
Yes.
For the ocean. Like, we know when things pass into our sea space, maybe not our airspace, but our sea space. So there's not a boat out there launching them, probably.
No, it's very unlikely. Though I do know, and I didn't know this till I started researching this. Did you know there's drones that can go underwater?
No, I did not know that. But I do know there's UFOs that can as well.
Yes. So some of the new cinematography drones, they are submergible. And though they do not travel well in the water,
right?
If you put them into the water, they will get themselves out of the water and then into the air.
Okay. That's interesting. Now, is there any way that could be used to increase their distance and battery life, perhaps?
I would think that it would make it worse if it was in water, because now you have more than air restricting.
Right. But let me put this forward. You know how our rockets work?
Yes.
Where they have all this rocket fuel and thrust, and then it ejects that as it gets up higher when it doesn't need it as much.
Yeah.
What if these were traversing underwater and they had large battery packs that they couldn't carry through the air, but they can through the water, and they jettison them when they emerge from the water?
That could be.
That's a possibility.
That could be.
Just spitballing that right now.
That's valid. I never thought of that, but that is true.
No.
That's possible.
No. Yeah, I mean, I've never heard of such a thing, but that's one way I could think that they could accomplish this.
I don't think to the same levels. But yes, I would agree. It definitely would give them a better probability. The problem is the length of the time they're in the air. That, for me, there's just nothing.
I can't explain that, because you can't replace your batteries in the air.
Right.
And we were talking about earlier, you have 3 batteries, but it's got to come down and get it and take off again. And we know that they've not been doing that. The formations that happened stayed the same, like overnight and into the next evening almost here.
Right.
So like that's really unusual.
Well, and another thing we talked about earlier, the DOD says that they're not U.S. military.
Right.
And the DOD also says they're not attributed to any foreign nations, despite one person who originally came out and said, they're Iran. It's Iran. Iran is coming for us.
Yeah.
But now the DOD's like, no, that's not really the case.
Right. Now, and not to keep going back to this movie, but leave the world behind. Another tactic they use is they dropped flyers in different locations, and each location they put it one in Iranian, one in Chinese, one in Russian, in different areas, so that people were panicking and couldn't pinpoint who the actual target was from.
That's wild.
And actually, on this movie, one of the consultants, I don't know if he was a consultant for the book or the movie, for how the government would handle things, was Barack Obama.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Well, ain't that something?
Yeah. So people saying, oh, it's Iranian. Well, maybe that's one thing that we're led to believe. You know, a lot of people are saying China. A lot of people are saying Russia. I kind of discount Russia, though, because your upcoming president in Russia have a very solid relationship, I think.
I wouldn't say solid, but I would say I don't think our incoming president wants war.
No, and I don't think they want war with him either.
No, I don't think they do.
Or with you guys at all. But
right. That's the thing. I think that the new administration coming in will be good from a standpoint of, I think there'll be less conflict than what we've seen in the last 4, for sure.
Right. Now, even though he's incoming, he made a statement that said The government does know.
Correct.
He doesn't know. The government does know, but they're not saying, and he don't know why.
And he also said, I will no longer be visiting New Jersey.
What about the fear here at home of the drones?
Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Can you comment on the drones that are flying around New Jersey and ports? It seems like the American people have a big disconnect.
The government knows what is happening. Look, our military knows where they took off from. If it's a garage, they can go right into that garage. They know where it came from and where it went. And for some reason, they don't want to comment. And I think they'd be better off saying what it is. Our military knows and our president knows. And for some reason, they want to keep people in suspense. I can't imagine it's the enemy, because if it was the enemy, they'd blast it out. Even if they were late, they'd blast it. Something strange is going on. For some reason, they don't want to tell the people, and they should, because the people are really, I mean, they happen to be over Bedminster.
Will you shoot them down?
They're very close to Bedminster. I think maybe I won't spend the weekend in Bedminster. I've decided to cancel my trip.
Which that's ominous.
Yeah, because here's the thing. Everyone's saying it's not a threat. It's not a viable threat. But then the incoming president goes, no, and he's getting briefed because he's coming into office.
Right.
So he's getting all these briefings like, our current president does.
Right.
But he's saying they know what it is. We should tell the American public.
Mm-hmm.
The way he left it almost felt like a UFO.
Yeah.
But I'm putting words in his mouth at that point.
Right.
But, it kind of gave that vibe. But he's like, I'm not going to be in New Jersey. If he's not going to be in New Jersey, the people in New Jersey is probably like, well, I don't want to be here.
I don't want to be in New Jersey.
Exactly. If he doesn't feel comfortable being here.
Well, that's what they're saying. It's not a threat. It's not a threat. But I'll tell you that when I saw them coming in, I felt threatened. Like it was a group of probably 10 or 15 of us standing on this ledge looking at these coming in. We felt it was a threat. Someone said this is just like the beginning of an apocalypse movie or an invasion movie.
Yeah.
I like to go for walks at night, and when I was looking up and seeing them at night, I was like, I feel threatened. They could do something to me and no one would ever know what happened.
Correct.
Like, why they just picked me out, I doubt, but...
It's like an Independence Day when they're all standing with their signs on top of that tower.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you see that beam and they're looking up, and then it's just... whoosh, and it blows the entire building up.
That could happen. And I mean, if so when people watch the next videos on the next thing, and I'm not going into it too much, I'm not really saying anything on there, but the entirety of our town, it is only a little bit bigger than the airport property.
Wow.
And you have 20 drones positioned over top of our town. What could they do? What could they do? Because we've seen in Russia and the Ukraine what one can do, like destroying tanks and all this kind of stuff. That's one.
Correct.
So I feel threatened by it. I'm not a conspiracy guy most of the time. I feel threatened.
Oh, for sure. But here's the thing, too. They're not going to ever make it to where we're concerning ourselves with possibilities.
Right.
So they'll always keep some things in their quote unquote hat, as we'll put it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, another thing, and we kind of covered this too. They're way too big. They would be insanely expensive for any private person to be pulling this kind of a stunt, let alone power requirements and legal repercussions. So
and quantity.
Correct. There's so many of these things. Like you said, the amount of drones that was going up in the air, let's say they're 30,000 a pop.
Right.
You're talking 500,000 that's going to be in the air between everything that we know.
Right. And with this quantity, they must have been made in a factory. No one's coming ahead to claim this, saying, oh, we just got an order for 300 drones.
Right. Which doesn't make any sense.
Right. So that would have to be a completely Like, and I feel like I sound like a nut when I say stuff like this, but just bear with me. Like, you know how they used to operate supposedly Area 51, where they'd bust people in and they'd stay for a long time and then they'd bust them out.
Yep.
And all that kind of thing. It would have to be some kind of factory where every single worker who works there is taken there. They stay there for an extended period of time and they're taken away, like completely self-sufficient, isolated facility, right?
Correct. Have to be.
Right. They say there's only one way two people can keep a secret, and that's if one of them is not living.
Correct. Now, another interesting thing that was said was that we've apparently tried to use anti-drone tech.
Right.
And it's had zero effect.
Right. But I've seen the reverse happen to drones that people have sent up to try to investigate them.
They lose power and they fall right back down to the ground.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's almost like they're not even reacting and it happens.
Right.
You know?
Correct.
I wonder if that's some kind of automatic feature that they're not even triggering it. It just happens if something approaches too close.
Here's the thing, though, how close they're getting to airplanes.
Right.
So it must know viable threat versus not viable threat. Like there was a series, there was either one or a series of them that was around Air Force One.
See, I cannot believe they allow that kind of thing.
I don't know that they can stop it, is what I'm saying.
Right. And that is the most threatening thing.
Yeah. Commander in chief.
Right. Right. Someone that they've built bunkers in the mountains for.
Correct.
Like they would be concerned with their safety.
Correct. But it makes me think they talked about Air Force One at one point in time.
Right.
And they said that in the events of a nuclear war, they could put the president in the air. And I think they said they could do it for up to like 30 days.
That's wild.
Yeah, the Air Force One has a capacity and it has the capability of being refueled. And it would never touch the ground for 30 days.
I've seen planes refuel midair.
Yeah.
It is quite interesting.
For sure.
As long as you can keep what's on the ground operating.
Correct. But they say the safest place for him is in the air.
It would be.
But
I
not
would
if
think.
these things are there and they're that close and they can't stop them.
Right.
There's no longer a safe place to be.
What? Yeah, I know. That's the thing. But I find it hard to believe they can't stop them. I feel like they've not tried.
Here's the thing. When we're talking about the president of the United States of America,
right,
they're going to try.
Right.
They're going to.
So have they secretly tried to no success?
They don't talk about it at all.
Right. Now, do you remember this was, I think, in the 60s, where lights appeared out on the water. I don't remember if it was like San Francisco or somewhere, or I don't know the geology or whatever, the geographic areas, but the military fired at these things all night long, nonstop.
Correct.
Just a barrage. And there was no effect whatsoever.
Correct.
Is it a stretch of imagination to think that these could be the same things and we already know about them, know that we have no effect on them, and we don't want to make people worry by seeing an ineffective attack?
Absolutely, it could be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because think about it. They just said that they had an overactive imagination, but there was people that they swore that we were being attacked.
Right. Right.
And the crazy part of the entire thing, they woke up the next morning expecting to see all these things that was shot and on the ground.
Right. Not so.
Not a single thing.
Yeah.
We didn't
completely
hit anything.
ineffective. No, or we did and it just was no good.
Covered up.
Yeah. Or something to that effect. But there's no doubt Like that's a historical fact that happened.
Yes.
What it was there, we don't know.
Right.
But I can tell you that I'm less concerned about them not doing anything about it than I would be if they tried to do something and it didn't work.
Couldn't do anything. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. That would really freak me out because we've lost total control over our own destinies at that point.
Correct.
So that's not a good feeling.
Not a good feeling.
Right.
This is why you say please and thank you to all AI.
That's right.
Things
Just in case. Just in case.
Now, probably the most compelling thing that came out of this New Jersey police. They couldn't find a frequency that these things were operating on.
Oh, that's something I hadn't considered and is really troubling.
All drones run on a frequency.
Have to. Unless there's someone sitting in it.
Correct. It would have to be a manned aircraft.
And even then, they'd want to communicate.
Yes.
Have some kind of communication.
0 frequencies found.
Right. And they're going in formations that requires some kind of
coordination.
So.
Yeah.
Man, I hadn't even considered that.
Yeah. They've looked, cannot find a frequency.
Right.
So we had all that happening. Now, in mid-December, the FAA expanded the flight restriction to parts of New York State, including Brooklyn, Queens, and Long Island.
Right.
So they see all this and they go, oh, wait a second. Now, one thing that we don't talk about very often here in Ohio, we have a military base.
Right.
Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. That Air Force Base was shut down because of a series of drones that was also hovering over our Air Force Base.
Really?
Yes.
And there was no response to that either other than shutting it down.
You barely hear anyone even talk about it.
You know, I don't think we could write a novel that would have this kind of, that would portray this kind of apprehension that people should be feeling right now.
Correct. It's a very threatening thing.
It is a very threatening thing. And all we're being told is don't worry about it.
Right.
And that's troubling too, because we pretty much know at this point that the government hides things if they feel it's not in our best interest to know.
Absolutely.
The whole UFO, UAP thing, I think we know for a fact that there's something going on there, whether it's terrestrial or extraterrestrial, they're not telling us.
Correct.
But this kind of response, they have to know something.
Has to be something.
Right.
Now, what is interesting is late December, the report of drone sightings decreased significantly, particularly Ocean County.
So it decreased in Ocean County in particular?
Yes, it significantly decreased.
Now, from what you were showing me earlier, stuff is still being spotted quite frequently.
Yes. So one of the things that I did not talk about, there is groups. I'm a part of a couple of these groups, but there's one predominantly that I brought Nick into this evening that they're still reporting every day, 10 to 15 different posts minimum per day showing these drones. So it's still happening.
It is still happening here, although a lot decreased as well, because while we've been recording, I can see messages popping up from the first lady that I interviewed, and I know she's sending me clips of things right now. So
that's insane.
It's now here's something I want to know. It started happening all up along our coast,
yes,
and then into a couple other provinces afterwards. Has it gone south in the US yet?
Yes. So here's the interesting thing about the US. So initially it started in New Jersey and kind of filtered into New York.
Right.
There were sightings in Staten Island, in Long Island.
Right.
But then it started making its way into Pennsylvania.
Okay.
and it was around Philadelphia and surrounding counties. Then it was observed in Maryland, and it was typically observed near critical infrastructures, including like nuclear power plants.
Right.
And
don't like that.
Yeah. What's interesting is when we talk about, and I'm not saying this is what it is, UFOs, right, they're typically spotted around nuclear power plants.
We had an episode where we talked about when UFOs started showing up, and it was all being triggered by nuclear tests.
Correct. Now, it was also spotted in Connecticut.
Right.
Incidents was obviously coming up so predominantly there that they started asking for federal action.
Right. Was there any response to that?
No. Then it found its way to Massachusetts and New Hampshire.
Right. Yeah.
Then Virginia, to where even the governor started expressing these deep concerns over these drones that was happening in his state, because he's like, this makes no sense.
Right.
Then it found its way to Ohio, which we mentioned the military installment. My buddy is also, he lives here in Ohio, and he lives probably 15 minutes from me.
Oh, okay.
So this video we saw, I mean, I could have drove 15 minutes and saw it myself.
Yeah, it's close to home.
Yes.
You may still, like, I don't know how much time you spend outside your house at night, but this could all be going on.
I never do. I'm going to be honest.
Right.
About 2 weeks ago, I went outside because I'm like, I wonder if these doggone drones, but it's been rainy here a lot.
Right. We've had a lot of cloud cover.
Yes.
Most nights.
Correct. Yeah. Now, I downloaded an application that they tell all these people to download, because you can download it, you can click on it, and you can see whatever aircraft is above you.
Right.
And the one I downloaded, it's called Flight 25. This is one of 3 different ones I've downloaded so far. But anyway.
The iPhone used to do that for you if you asked, I can't say it right now, but the SIRE.
Yeah.
SIRI, sorry. If you asked her, she like, what's above me right now? It used to tell you by default.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, this one, and I highly doubt you guys will be able to see this, but on the screen, you'll see Columbus. Well, it's not gonna stop looking at me. Look at my phone.
Yeah.
You can see little airplanes on the map.
Maybe you can overlay a screenshot later.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Let me just do that. But there's a little series of airplanes, and you can see there's probably in my airspace right now 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. There's about 11. There's about 11 aircraft currently within Ohio 270 around Columbus, right?
Right.
But anyway, I downloaded this application. I go outside and I'm looking around, and I also have, because those of you that probably haven't been around very long, I also used to love astronomy. So I have astronomy apps that shows me all the constellations.
Right.
Here's where all the planets are. And I've got a big, huge telescope.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I would go outside and I'd try to find different things and take photos of like different things. Like I took an amazing photo of the moon and Jupiter and Saturn. And so really into it. So I go out and I see this bright, it looked like a star.
Right.
And I said, that's probably like a star.
Right. So I first step, get the app out.
Correct.
Right.
So I got my app out. I looked, not a star. So I'm like, okay, well, clearly it's an airplane then.
Yeah.
Now, no blinking light that I could see. And I get the app out for the planes. There was planes, but they should have been in a different location. And here's the thing. I looked in the location. I couldn't see the plane's lights.
Right.
Now, this app also covers helicopters, anything that's technically in the airspace.
Yeah.
But while I was doing this, I was probably out there like 15, 20 minutes. I started thinking about it. If that's an airplane, it would have already moved.
Right.
It wouldn't be in the same spot.
Yeah, for sure. Especially over that amount of time.
Correct. It's like 15, 20 minutes of me doing all this stuff and then trying to, like, I probably spent 5 minutes going, okay, if this, and I'm not going to freaking, tell you exactly where I'm at, but I'm like, this city is that direction, which is where this airplane's supposed to be. And then I'm looking, I'm like, I probably stared for like 5 minutes just trying to see if I could find the airplane one.
Right.
And then I looked at where that is, and I'm looking on the app. I'm like, well, what would be over that way? But here's the thing. I was like everyone else. I'm like, I don't know enough about this. If I take a photo of it, they're going to be like, it's just Starlink, or it's just, a helicopter or something like that, So I didn't even take a photo of it, but that could have been one. There was no blinking light. I don't know how high off the ground it was. It's pretty high off the ground. I mean, it was, if I was to guess, it would be where an aircraft would be.
Right.
But it was bright. Like, it was, for anyone that's into astronomy, it reminded me of how bright like Venus is when it's right in the sun's path and you get that bright star.
Right.
That's what it reminded me of. Not quite as bright as like the North Star, but like probably Venus when it's in its prime.
Yeah. Since you kind of brought it up anyway, I think we should talk about the elephant in the room.
Okay.
That the modern version of swamp gas and owls is people just saying, oh, it's Starlink.
It's doggone Starlink.
Like, without looking at things, that's what people are using to dismiss people's sightings now. Like, I know I heard people and saw people posting saying, oh, I saw something tonight. It's really weird. I've never seen anything like it before. And without people seeing it or anything, they're like, Starlink.
Right.
You're foolish at Starlink.
Correct.
Like, why are these people even joining these groups if they're going to dismiss everything with Starlink? You can find out where Starlink is.
At any point in time, yeah. In fact, on those astronomy apps, they tell you.
Right. Yes. So if someone's telling you, I'm seeing something strange, you don't need to say it's Starlink if they've already checked that it's Starlink.
Correct.
Like, some things are not Starlink.
It's like that astronomy app that I use. It shows you exactly where the ISS is. It shows you where the Starlinks are. It shows you all that stuff. And they do it because if you're an astronomer, some people want to see that stuff.
Oh, yeah, of course. It's interesting.
Correct. Yeah. It's just, if the ISS is going over, the International Space Station is going over my house.
Right.
How cool would that be to get it within my telescope and see it?
That would be awesome.
It's awesome. I've never been able to do it. I know someone who has, but that's my thing. Like, people want to see that kind of stuff. So the average person's not going to know that kind of stuff, but those who are going out and looking for it, they're going to find it. But here's the thing. Also, if it's the Starlink, those still move.
Right. Exactly.
And they stay in a perfect pattern. And typically they're all in a straight line.
Yeah.
They're not off. They're not zigzagged or anything like that.
Yeah. They're not in the same position for 2 nights straight.
Correct.
I did look this up earlier so I could speak to this. You cannot see them in daylight. Only just before sunset or just before sunrise. But otherwise in daylight, you can't see them. So 4:30 p.m., middle of the day, you cannot see Starlink.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Now back to the States. They've seen them as low as Florida. But here's the interesting one. Before all this kind of died down in California, drones were spotted near sensitive sites, including Plant 42. And again, it makes you sit there and go, why would a drone be near Plant 42 in Palmdale? That doesn't make any sense.
Right. So what is Plant 42? Is that like power plant or?
So I'm going to butcher this if let me do it correctly because I don't want to.
Oh, well, that's okay. I asked, so I don't know anything about this. Well, so I'm going to accept whatever you say.
So a funny thing, have you ever played Resident Evil?
Oh, yeah.
They got a Plant 42. in Resident Evil also.
Okay.
So the way that Plant 42 works is in Palmdale, and it's a power plant that's basically used by the U.S. Air Force.
Okay.
Some of the conspiracy theories that we've talked about in the past, some of that comes from military installments that's near Plant 42. We've talked about Plant 42 in other episodes. I don't know that we've necessarily used it as like a key important role.
Right.
But yeah, according to the interwebs, so I don't screw this up, the United States Air Force Plant 42 is a classified aircraft manufacturing plant owned by the United States Air, about 60 miles from downtown Los Angeles. It's also used by the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Plant 42 shares a runway with Palmdale Regional Airport.
Okay.
So that is the proper explanation.
So NASA's got a little stake in that too.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. We actually talked about, what episode was it we talked about it? And I brought up Plant 42. It was one of my episodes, so it had to be, wouldn't have been Roswell. It would have been newer than that.
There was another one that happened sort of like in a desert area that you told.
I can't remember what it was for the life of me.
Yeah.
But I brought it up. It was built in the 30s, 35. Right. And it was built from 35 to 56.
Okay.
There's actually an interesting story that I want to tell on Plant 42. I can't go into in this episode. It wouldn't make sense.
Can't give it away anyway.
Yeah. But there's an interesting piece of unsolved mystery, we'll call it, that comes out of Plant 42.
Right.
But it was also found over that installment also, which again makes you wonder, why is it there? That doesn't make sense.
How can you allow this? That's why I keep coming back to. How can you allow this? And our government has these things too, but we're just talking about the most popular one, Area 51.
Yeah.
If I, as a regular dude with no weapons on me, nothing, walk in there, what's going to happen?
Right.
I'm going to get shot or something like that. But you can allow drones that you don't know about to go over nuclear facilities and all this kind of stuff. It just doesn't. Something's not adding up. Plant 42.
Right.
Around Air Force One.
Like of all of them, Air Force One is the one that blows my mind. Like there's absolutely no excuse for that.
Yeah.
Now, something that's interesting, and you may not know this, we talked about these things having a pattern.
Right.
Like Starlinks is a pattern.
Different formations and such.
Correct. Yeah. Do you know this isn't the first time we've had experiences like this?
I did not know that. I wasn't aware of that.
So in 2019, Colorado and Nebraska had drone sightings.
Oh, really?
In late 2019, residents in Colorado and Nebraska reported mysterious drone sightings with large drones flying in grid patterns over rural areas.
Now, back then, drones were not as frequent as they are now.
Correct. We're talking 5 years ago. Like drones were, that was probably when my Mavic came out.
Yeah, and you said you had an early version of it, right?
Correct.
So
drones were very few and far in between at that point.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would be like, I don't really even know what I'm looking at here. Right. A little plane,
Right. Now, the event sparked public interest as well as concern, though no definitive explanation was ever provided. As quickly as it started, it ended.
Now, when they say as quickly as it started, it ended. So it's not ongoing.
Nope.
Like this.
It just stopped.
Interesting.
So it started in late 2019, ended late 2019.
You might not have this in front of you, but are we talking like days or a day or?
It doesn't say.
Sounds like probably a day or so.
Now to add to this, just put a little conspiracy out there.
All right, spin it out. Let's spin out.
In December of 2023, federal agencies, including the U.S. Transportation Command and Air Mobility Command, announced the creation of a drone testing corridor between New Jersey and Delaware. This initiative aimed to test various drone technologies, which may lead to increased drone activity in that region. That was per the U.S. Transportation Command and Air Mobility Command.
And since that's what it was announced. So we have a history of, if we know what it is, we announce it.
Yes. Now, since then, obviously, I mean, we're talking December of 2023.
Right.
Just short of a year later, we have all this increase in drone activity.
Right. Of which we're assured it's non-threatening. We don't know what it is. We're not doing anything about it. Just accept it.
Correct.
We're not flying. We're shutting down bases.
Correct.
For me, the pieces are not adding up.
No.
It's not adding up to a whole number. There's something
up with it.
There's something up with it. And I don't like to be the one that's like, no, there's more to this. But I'm all on board that we're either being misled or we're out of our league here. That's my opinion on it.
Well, there are conspiracy theories that's going around, and I have a pretty extensive list. I kind of want to go over each one.
All right.
So number one, and we've kind of been knocking around this one for a little bit.
Right.
Government operations. So we're talking military testing, surveillance operations, weather monitoring. I think all of those things are kind of along the lines of what we're just talking about with the military testing. They set up all that in December of 2023. It was like, hey, we got this drone. It's like, who was it when we were talking about COVID? It was Jon Stewart, and he was on the Colbert show. Remember that?
Yeah.
And he's talking about COVID, and he said, I don't know. It could be from the Wuhan. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like this, right? Like, we know there's drone facilities that was placed in the same regions as now where there was an increase in drones. So could it be that? Or perhaps, and I'm just throwing this out there, what if we already knew there was activity happening over there? So we put installments to potentially figure out what's going on ourselves.
Well, I mean, that would be a great way to do it. It would cover up anything we don't know.
Right.
While giving us the opportunity to investigate that same thing that we don't know.
Correct.
So we'd get a lot less. That would put the kibosh to all the questions, really.
Correct.
Now, relating that to today, is this too widespread that we just can't do that plan again?
I don't know, because the American public, we just kind of go, well, okay. We just keep moving.
Well, trust me, we're way worse than that.
Yeah.
We buy almost everything the government says, except a small percentage of us that thinks really weird things are happening. But you know what they could have said, and they would have come out smelling like roses?
What's that?
We're strengthening our with the increase of drones and modern warfare and spying. We're increasing our security, and we're testing our drones up and down the coast, both in a joint effort between the United States and Canada. Because we do that stuff.
Oh, for sure.
Like, our countries cooperate on our coastal protection.
100%.
Well known. So they would have come out looking good. The only downside to that plan is if something goes wrong, then it sort of blows the whole cover. So maybe that's why they can't do that.
Correct. Now, there is a second thought process that's going around, which is foreign involvement. We kind of covered that a little bit.
Yeah.
And we're talking about foreign nations like China or Russia using drones to kind of, if anything, survey our surroundings. We kind of covered that with the whole, nuclear power plants. You got Plant 42 that's sitting out there, Air Force One. They're just, maybe they're just testing.
Yeah.
And on top of that, we also have the fear of, and I know there's a fear in Canada also, terrorists, and doing a little bit of reconnaissance and just kind of seeing this is where we can attack and here's how we're going to attack it. I mean, I know that there, and without going too deep into it, there was a video that came out where a terrorist made a video. It became relatively not per se famous here, but well known, where he goes, "You don't know who I am, but you soon will." And he's in the States. We know he's in the States.
Yeah. There's a lot of dangerous stuff that we don't know about. Like, there was something like 6,000 nuclear warheads that have gone missing over the last decade and stuff like that. Like, we don't know where any of this stuff is. There's a lot of stuff that can happen.
Right. We have no clue.
And foreign nations, we kind of talked about ways that it could maybe happen, that kind of thing. But again, I'd expect a response, especially in that situation.
Correct.
So
I don't know.
Plus, it's quite a distance to traverse.
It is, but it's not. Like, we had that Russian submarine that came up just on the coast of Florida.
Right.
And much like these drones, they didn't hide it. They made it very well known. Hey, here we are. You didn't even know we were here, but here we are. So if they're outfitted with all these drones, they come off the bottom of the ocean. They throw 20 of them up in the air.
Yeah. I mean, that's within the realm of possibility.
Correct.
I feel like, just sort of sideline that, we're probably talking about hundreds of drones at this stage.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. If not thousands.
Right. And there's no strategic benefit to our province, really.
No. Or is there, and we don't know?
Well, that's a possibility. But we'll look at it this way. So here's the thing. There is one strategic thing that they could cause massive trouble, not to us, but to you through this province. New York and all down through there, and a large portion of the eastern US buys almost all of its power from the Bay of Fundy tidal bore.
Yeah.
Where we produce electricity there. In fact, there was a problem, I'd say about 10 years ago now, where there was like a blackout of quite a bit of the US because there was a problem with our station there. So that's the only thing I could think of, because we don't do nuclear power here. We don't have major military installations, that kind of thing. But it just crossed my mind that if they were looking at that and they wanted to destabilize, another foreign power could do that.
Here's the thing, though. You may have military installments and not even know it.
That is true. That is true.
Because they're not going to divulge every area. Like, they talk about the amount of military installments here in the States that we have no clue or concept about.
Right.
Like, here's something, and I can't go too deep into it. I live very close to where they do nuclear testing for the military.
Interesting.
Like, we'll be sitting in our house and they give us a warning. Hey, you're going to hear large booms. And this facility, if I drive to it, it's 15 minutes away, and it shakes. It literally shakes.
Wow.
In my house.
Actually, you know what? I just had a recollection that is making me doubt myself here. Because do you remember when we did cover the Shag Harbor incident?
Oh, yeah.
There was another, there was reports earlier that somewhere in this province, they shot down a UFO. Like, they actually hit it with some kind of weapon.
Right.
I have no idea where that would have come from. I didn't know we had that capability, but we had it in the 60s. So maybe that is still here.
See?
You
might be shocked.
I might be shocked. I actually am kind of questioning myself now that I've had that recollection from that episode.
Oh, yeah.
Now, yeah, so we don't know.
Now, there's a lot of things that if we did know, we'd probably freak out, which is why we don't know.
Right.
Like the facility that I know is near my house. Like I know, my understanding is there's missiles at that facility also that's underground. That they basically said that if there is an event where, let's use for example, we broke out into a war, that there's a good chance that we would be bombed.
Right.
So, you know,
that should drop your property value, I hope.
My property value's through the roof.
They must have forgot about that then.
I don't think they advertise it. They don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Now, one of the interesting things that some of these conspiracy theorists has is that it's a corporate usage, like a private sector doing experiments or like tech prototypes. I think that's the craziest possible concept. There's no benefit. Like Amazon ain't out there throwing these drones up, see how long their packages can run. Like that's stupid.
Well, I'll tell you as well. Corporations do get a lot of leeway.
Yeah.
But they'd never get approval for something like this.
Not near Air Force One, military installments. That would never happen.
No, not even to have this much metal in airways that they're not supposed to have it in. They just wouldn't be allowed to do it.
Correct. So I pretty much blew that one out of the ballpark within the first 5 seconds.
Right. And I'm kind of doing the same thing. I'm not on board with that.
Now this next one, maybe extraterrestrial or paranormal. So UFOs, UAPs, that I believe is possible. And the reason I say it's possible is no heat signature, no frequency.
Right.
Those are two things.
This is what I want it to be.
Yeah, for sure.
This is right. And wasn't there news stories just before this of them saying some people who were once officials for the governments were saying that we've known that they're coming out of the oceans for ages. Yeah. Like I think my brother was telling me about that, and I think you mentioned it too.
Well, it's funny because, and I need to look this up. If I can find it before we put this episode out, there was an object that was just hurling through our universe.
Right.
We've been watching it. We had a few hypotheses and what we believed it was. And we zapped something at it to kind of figure out what it was.
Right.
And it changed its trajectory to start heading more towards Earth.
Oh, that's not good.
That's probably not good.
No, I've read a lot of horror stories about this kind of thing.
Right.
Why do we always do that?
I don't know. Like, we have no clue what's out there.
Yeah. They like, I've talked about it before, but Six and Lou did the 3 body problem. And the whole premise behind that is there's life everywhere in the universe. But it's too dangerous to make yourself known.
Right.
But meanwhile, this planet full of like crazy apes that have evolved, we're just shooting lasers at every warship passing by.
Right.
You know, just trying to get their attention.
Correct. It's a very crazy concept. But then you see stuff like that and you go, what if they made it?
What if they did?
Now they're checking us out.
Yeah. What if they've been here and they're in the parts like we know more about the immediate space around us than we do about our oceans?
Correct. We have no concept of what's underneath.
Right.
Zero concept.
Right. Yeah. And we had that sound that was heard through every ocean at one time. That could have been anything. Like it's verifiable that there's typically more UAP, UFO sightings in coastal regions.
Right.
So who knows? I want to believe this one.
You and me both.
Right.
I think of everything that I've heard, the fact that there's no heat signature, no frequency,
right.
I lean that direction by default.
The frequency thing really threw me for a loop there.
Correct.
I hadn't even considered that.
Because I don't know of a way that these can operate unless they're manned.
Right.
Without the use of a frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe someone in our comments down below will be like, hey, here's how they would do it. But
yeah,
I don't know of a possible way. Another one that I've shot down was civilian and recreational activities. So hobbyists, drone shows. That's not it.
Yeah, we don't have the resources. We don't have the technology or access to the technology.
Right.
Just that one's a virtual impossibility.
Correct. The sixth one that I've shot down, criminal and malicious intent. So espionage, smuggling. They wouldn't invest that much time and they wouldn't be doing it over military installments or Air Force One. Like that makes no sense.
Right. They wouldn't be telegraphing their actions either.
No.
A spy blends in smuggling. You definitely don't want to be seen.
Right.
So I don't think that's. Plus, I don't know what you'd have to smuggle with the carrying capacity of a drone versus the cost of creating them.
Right.
You know, that's
Correct.
pretty wild. The only thing that you could make money on probably is smuggling drones in.
Right.
By flying them in.
Correct. That'd be the only thing that would make sense.
Yeah.
Next one, scientific and academic research. So environmental research, monitoring the ecosystems, wildlife, climates, aviation research, testing new drone capabilities for commercial and academic purposes. I shot that one out.
Yeah. There's literally no reason not to say that.
Correct. Yeah.
Like science and different projects like that get their funding based on being known and published in journals. There's literally no reason for them to keep that secret and sort of destabilize everything. Plus, they wouldn't be shutting down the airways, you know, all this kind of stuff.
Correct.
Yeah.
The next one that is possible, conspiracy theories, mass surveillance, mind control devices, and population control.
I don't know, maybe.
The only
I'm
reason,
not into this.
only reason that I say it's possible is there's a speculation that they're dispensing chemicals or other substances into the air.
Yeah.
Now, some of these drones are seen with a tail.
We've seen a lot of those.
And what people saying is that they have chemicals coming out of the back of them and they're putting that chemical in the air.
I don't believe this. There's a lot better ways to disperse that, I think.
Well, we've been doing it for decades.
Right. So why change now?
The only thing I could think is testing new ways of doing it that might be more efficient.
Right.
You can pinpoint versus with aircrafts. They typically, what they've been doing in the past is they've been creating, they use little flecks of like aluminum, and they can basically make it rain. They put some chemicals to change some of the cloud patterns and distribution. There was actually a theory, and we'll cover that in a different episode also, where potentially some of this hurricane stuff that was happening was also testing. And there is very good probable cause to think, yeah, that's a little weird.
Okay.
But we'll cover that in a different episode. The mind control devices, I'm not too much into that. The mass surveillance, I don't think that we'd be surveilling our own.
No, they just don't have to.
Yeah, there's no reason to.
They just don't have to. Yeah, and if it was about us, like what more information could they possibly want about us?
Right.
You know, they know all our travel patterns. They've got our pictures, our fingerprints, our
And we do 3/4 of it from our cell phone. We do it ourselves.
Right. Yeah. It's like mine's. I mean, if someone was tracking that, they know where I am all the time. I never leave it behind.
Yeah, I don't either.
So
now, more than likely, I think this one is 104% what it is.
Okay.
Natural explanations. We're talking misidentifications of birds, aircrafts, balloons mistaken for drones. I'm saying it's them doggone owls, Nick.
It's as soon as I saw birds on there, I'm like, the owls again.
Them owls getting us every time, Nick.
That's owls. It's always the owls. That's got to be like our mascot.
It really
the
needs
owl.
to be our mascot. There needs to be a big old owl behind us.
Yeah.
Go, whoo.
The first stories we did season 1, owls came up so much.
Almost every single episode they came up.
Yeah, I don't know what the explanation for that was, but it was always owls.
It was nonstop. But no, this was just another crazy theory.
Mm-hmm.
There's no credence to it. Atmospheric conditions creating illusions of drones in the sky. First off, that wouldn't have happened all of a sudden just out of nowhere. That just doesn't make sense.
Too widespread.
Correct.
Too many different variations on it. I would add to this one, there's things like what do they call that? Mass hallucinations or mass hysteria.
Right.
I don't think that's possible because we really weren't expecting them here.
Correct. Yeah.
So if it's mass hallucinations or mass hysteria, they just wouldn't have happened because we weren't expecting it.
Right.
So
yeah, that's crazy. It just doesn't make any kind of sense at all.
Yeah, there's a couple in this list. There's a pretty extensive list. This is a good list.
Yes.
There's a couple that I'm like, yeah, maybe. There's one that I'm like, I absolutely want it to be this one. and some of the things you brought up have kind of even pushed me further into that.
Mm-hmm.
Like the heat signatures and the lack of signal.
Because we have aircrafts now that they do a pretty good job of hiding heat signatures. We have aircraft right now that's capable, but we don't have no drones that I know of that's able to do that.
No, not that I'm aware of.
No.
And definitely the signal thing. We've got nothing that does that.
Right.
Right. Unless it goes completely silent, which is fine, but then you're not getting into formations, which they have been getting into.
Correct.
So
the very last thing on this list, unregulated operators, which again, I dismiss it. Unauthorized activity, black market operations. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Number 10 kind of fits in with 6 and 5.
Yeah, for sure. Criminal and malicious intent and the civilian and recreational activities. For me, this falls one of, honestly, for me personally, 3 spots. I'm going to lean extraterrestrial or paranormal, and let's be 100% extraterrestrial for me.
Right.
I would put that at 55%.
Yeah.
And then I would put government operations and foreign involvement as a potential number 2.
Yeah, I had watched the list here and I was going to say the same one. So I'm glad we're like totally aligned on this.
Yeah.
So between government action and foreign involvement, what's your percentages on that? Let's say extraterrestrial of 50%. How do we divide up the other 2?
If it was me, I would go 55% UFO.
Right. Oh, it's even higher.
I would go higher than half.
Right. Okay.
Then I would do 35% government.
Right.
10% foreign involvement.
Yeah, I'm almost the opposite on those ones. I'd say I'm 100%, like I'm right on you, 55%, or maybe even higher on number 4 extraterrestrial. But I'd go like higher foreign involvement and lower regular government.
Only reason I went higher government involvement was the fact that they put a freaking drone facility there a year ago.
Yeah. So, well, I was going to say we'll see, but we probably won't ever know. We're going to get 2 things. We're either going to get a mystery that we never solve, or we're going to get vaporized by some kind of ray.
I'm hoping for the latter.
Yeah.
So obviously this is part 1. This is the US version. Next week, we're going to be covering this from a completely different angle, a completely different way of looking at it. And we're going to look at it on Canadian land, U.S. Junior.
That's right. Well, I don't know about that.
Our 51st state.
Don't get started. We're close family, but we're not going to live in the same house. But yeah, we have similar experiences, different responses.
Yeah.
You're going to find that very different in the next episode.
It's going to be super interesting. I think you guys are definitely going to want to tune in. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to see more of what we're doing, please be sure to hit that like button. That's how other people find us. Hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell. And last but not least, tell us in the comments down below, what do you think this is? Is there something that we didn't cover? Is there something that we missed? I tell you what, by the time this comes out, we're going to be recording our next episode. So maybe we can do a little update if you got some comments also. So definitely let us know what you think in the comments down below. But until we see you in the next podcast, next week from Canada land, goodbye.
Beep, beep, boop.